something that we've done now with the S7Plus board to allow more flexibility with the CAN transmission and receive for the generic units. CAN 1 and CAN 3 generally on the S7 Plus is used for OEM integration aspects, which we basically control the source code for that at Syvecs HQ. But we've had requests multiple times for the generic unit to be able to be actually more flexible. And from that, what we've done is created a USB SCAL profile that allows you to plug in the USB to your S7 Plus board via the hexa, removing the USB plug cover on the front of the case, flash this latest firmware, and basically then have full control of what goes on with the slave. So what that first means is you've got the slave slot configuration set up. So there's 28 slave slots, and what you can now choose to do is have it so that either they're under slave control or under user control. If it's under slave control, then it will just continue to work as it was before, with the data coming over from the OEM integration code if there is present on that unit, or if you've got, say, slave AN1 through to 6 is generally set up for the AS1 through 6 inputs, actual hardware on the S7 Plus. And then 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 is used for Lambda, etc. And 13 through to 28 then are generally more for custom OEM integration stuff, where it's getting data into the unit. So what we're going to do, we're just going to set the first slave AN01 at the moment to a user control. If we actually connect to the actual main ECU, just for the moment, just give us 1 second. We'll actually see that the slave, let's go to AS01. So let's just close these and then go gauge add slave AN01. And currently that is just basically reporting the raw voltage input of the actual hardware on the Plus board. So what we're going to now do is go back to the USB control and take over the user control of that. Going to set up the slave AN01 slot to be a renameable item. So there's 16 renameable custom items that you can basically assign to a slave slot, and then you can rename and scale those in the view customizing area. So you can come into here and rename all these to as you wish and change the scaling for those. Now generally the scaling in for a slave item is 0 to 4095 is 5 volts. So generally when you do the scaling for a slave control item, make sure in the data stream generic CAN receive setup of the scaling and offset, you basically have that to go into a format of either 0 to 4095. So what we're going to do, just for initially, the generic CAN transmit is set up to mimic the S7 fixed stream as standard. And if you look at the CAN transmission here, you can see all of the 600 hex frames coming out as normal. You can change the items, order and that, where the stuff is, items that are in there, etc. The frequency and the ID of what they're sent on and which bus. And then the really powerful part is you've got the flexible CAN transmit now, where you can basically shift items, have items scaled, etc. So if you want to actually have it in a custom layout, say you only want to send the launch switch on 1 bit now, instead of it going across 16 bits, you can do that in the flexible CAN transmit. So the generic CAN transmit is the quite powerful aspect. So if we just enable that, we're going to set it onto CAN 1, and we're going to basically look to receive the 2 custom inputs that I've set as standard. And we're going to look at the 200 hex frame, which I'm transmitting some data on. You can set the endianness, whether it's signed, the start bit position, the bit length for those items, and then the scaling and offset. So what we're going to do is, first of all, let's just leave the slave control as it is at the minute, program that, and just get the generic receive online. And then let's just view the customizing items. So you can see that these are actually picking up the data that I'm sending in from the CAN. So I'm sending in 5,000, and if I set that to 100%, that would be 8192. So if we go back to this, you'll then see that it's receiving those CAN transmissions that I'm sending in. Now currently, as we go back to the S7, you can see that this is just sat at the 4.84 at the moment, where it's assigned to, I believe, an air charge temp sensor. So if we then change this to basically go under user control, what that will now do is that will then take control of that input, and you'll see the actual slave AN voltage on the actual main ECU then reflect the RPM. So at the moment it's 1.15 volts. If we set this to say 2,500 RPM, that will then drop down it will obviously wrap around because the scaling option that I've got on there at the moment is too vast. So what we'll do, we can then go back to the S7Plus board, and then you can rescale that, so we can just have it as a quarter, bring that online, and then what that will then do is rescale that going into the SCAL. You can see now that it's actually reporting the range, and you can scale that to suit your needs. So it's quite a powerful thing that you can now actually pick up custom receive items, rescale them, rename them, and then save them in. At the moment, we've only allowed 16 used custom inputs. We're going to expand that up to 32 very shortly. This is just the first iteration of this unit. So yeah, hopefully it's useful for you.